Hey Jackal, it's been a while, so it's time to get down to business. And in this video, I'll show you how to make this old movie-inspired countdown timer with a bit of a modern twist. All of that in DaVinci Resolve free. Now let's get digital. Now, if you want something to happen and going on, the easiest way how to do that is to get some kind of a glitch effect. In this case, I have just a bunch of lines that are going down. You could also achieve this by using the Fusion Fast Noise node, but I think it's a little bit easier on the PC if you just have a video file. So what I have done is, I went to Pexels, typed in noise texture, and I downloaded this one. Maybe horizontal one, this one, anything that you want. You could also have colors, because you can always change them in DaVinci Resolve, and this is what I'll show you just now. So I did go to the effects, type in solid, toolbox, put in a solid color, this will be a background, by default this is black. You will go to the inspector tab and change the color. If you want something old-ish, you will go to the yellow color and just increase this a little bit. You will then put the video clip that you have on top. In this case it's this one. Depending on how long you want the counter to be, in this case the video is, let's say, 9 seconds long. You can always extend this when you make a Fusion composition, and you can also click on the video clip, go to the inspector tab, find speed change. So I can maybe slow it down, go to 50%. This will allow me to extend the duration. You can also, let me go back. You can also click on the clip, Ctrl R to go to the speed change. Now this is already applied to the 50% that I have changed previously, but you can also change the speed in this way. So you can also extend the solid. At the moment we just have this at the top, we don't see the color at the bottom. Now depending on what kind of video you have, you could simply go to the composite mode and change this to something that looks good to you. But what I have done before that, I went to the color tab, select the clip. So first go to this wheel, color wheel, the primaries. I set the saturation to 0, so basically black and white. I also decrease the shadows, so I don't have as many whites. So this is what the shadow does. And now let's go back to HDR grade and adjust the contrast. And this will make it so you have just a few lines. Maybe 1.5, and we'll see what you have at the end. Go back to the edit page, and now you can change the composite mode. In the edit page, you can simply hover over the composite modes to see the changes. This is not the case when we are inside the Fusion page. So maybe difference looks good to me. Now with the video clip, you can maybe change the rotation angle if you want it to go sideways. In this case though, you will have to increase the size of the clip. As you can see, it gets cut off at this point and at this point. So this will be for the background. Now we need to make the actual timer. We will do this in the Fusion page. So in the media pool, right click, new Fusion composition, make it, put it onto a timeline and extend it to be as long as the clip that you have on the bottom. Then select the Fusion composition and go into the Fusion page. In the Fusion page, if you have DaVinci Resolve 18.5, I believe, you can use Shift Space, type in Media In, and you can connect this to the Media Out. No changes will be visible just yet, but with the Media In selected, go to the inspector and for the media source, instead of timeline, select background. Everything that is below the Fusion composition will be visible. So this is the background that we made. And this will be a lot easier so we can actually visualize what we have. Now to make the timer, we will need only a few nodes. Maybe let's make first the crosshair. So one line horizontal and one vertical. In this one, let's say that this will be horizontal one, the width will go to 1, The height will be maybe 0.002. It will be a thin line. I'll now copy the rectangle, paste it, and I'll simply switch the two. So this one will be 002 and the height will be 1. And I can also adjust the soft edge, but I'll do that in a bit just so you can see how this looks like without a soft edge. Now in this case we have the vertical line that is a bit thicker than the horizontal one. So I'll simply fix that by using 0.004. So I think the lines now look the same. They are sharp, so if you want some softness, simply adjust the soft edge. Usually I also use 0.002 if I just want a tiny bit of soft edge. So this is now the background section, and we only need two things: numbers and the dial. Let's maybe make the dial now. Make a rectangle. The height can be 0.5. The width will be a lot less, maybe 0.004, and we'll position it up. But before we do, we'll simply leave it as is. Why is that? Well, because we'll be using a transform node to actually do the rotation. So if I make the connections like this, I can now adjust the angle and we should be able to see it, but we don't because the rectangle should not be connected to the mask. It should be connected to the yellow input. So now we see it. And now when you change the angle, it rotates like this. Not exactly what we want, but it's close. If I zoom in, do you see this green cross? This is a pivot point. It's set to 0.5 on both X and Y. And this pivot point has to be on the bottom of the rectangle. So to do that, I'll simply move it down. So this should be 0.25 if you did not make any adjustment to the rectangle. And then we have to position the whole rectangle up, and we will increase the y-axis. And again, if you did not make any changes, this should be 0.75. And now when you change the angle, this should rotate from the center, which it does. So now we will have to animate the angle, but we want to make it so this can be applied as a template, so it can be used in any timeline, not just in this timeline, which at the moment for me this is 30 frames per second. So how can we go about doing this? Well, if you go to my website, Jackal Digital, and I have a Fusion Foo section, go down and you will see a countdown and a count up timer. In this case, we want to make this dynamic, so we can make this into a template and use it in timelines with different frames per second. So I will simply copy this. Don't worry, I will pop this also on screen so you can see and explain what it does. So basically in the composition, which is this one, we'll get the preferences and we'll get the composition frame format.rate, which in this case should return 30. How will we know? Well, I will make a text node, right click, click expression. Since I already have a bunch of names, I'll maybe call this one FPS. Now the FPS does not exist just yet, but it will in a moment. And I will put it to the settings tab, to the comments. I will right click, make an expression, paste the expression in, and instead of X, I will type in FPS. So this is a variable. Previously it was called X, now it will be FPS. And if I now display this, we should see something. Maybe it gets buggy a little bit, as you can see. So let's see what the issue is. And this is why I don't like using expressions in DaVinci Resolve, because they should be working. Now it does. What this did need, instead of double quotes, it needed single quotes. Why is that? I have absolutely no idea. And just to make sure, if this is the same in the previous compositions. Did I use single or double quotes? And in this case, as you can see, I have used double quotes. Now it still doesn't display anything, but it also doesn't return a faulty node. If double quotes don't work, you have to use single quotes. So now we have 30, and that is correct. I have 30 frames per second in this composition or this timeline. And now we can use this value, FPS, when we have to do the calculations, which is what we'll be doing with this transform node angle value. So right click, expression. So we need to make one whole circle, multiply it by time being the current frame, and we have to divide this by, you guessed it, the FPS. So this should make one whole circle in the specified time, or in 1 second basically, and 1 second in our case is 30 frames. So let's see, does this make one whole circle in 30 frames? Yes, it does. But now we have an issue. This is going in the opposite direction and we have to flip it. Now you might want to flip it in this way, but you can't. You would be able to if you added another transform node. So if I flip it now, as you can see, this now works. But you don't need to use another node. You can simply add minus in the front, so minus 360, and this will now go in clockwise direction. And it will continue until the end of the fusion composition. And now we only have to add the timer. We could use this text node, but we can always make a new one, just so everything is separate. Go with expression, simply type in FPS. The value will be the same as in this node. The only difference is this node has the actual expression inside of it. You will connect this like so and change the size of the font style, the color to anything that you like, and then also decide if you want the clock hand to be on top of the numbers if you do. So what I would usually do is go to the last merge node and press Ctrl T to switch between these two inputs. I have done just that, but this is now on top of the number, so we actually don't see it. What I will do in this case though is simply switch the positions of the two merges so that the hand is last, meaning that it is on the top. Now in case you want to spice up the clock hand, you can do that. The first thing that you'll want to do is to add a background node and connect the rectangle to the background node. This will change the color. It is now completely black. Simply change this to what you want. In the rectangle, you can also specify the corner radius if you want this to be rounded. And you can also add some glows to this. So let's add some glow. And we can also add some soft glow. This is the default values. You can maybe also unlock the X and Y and scale this in the Y axis. Silly me, we still need an expression for the time. Currently it is just displaying 30, which is not seconds, it's the FPS, which is correct, but not what we actually want. So on my website again, you will find countdown timer section. This one has 3 decimals if you want this formatting. In our case, we just want the seconds. So I will copy this section. And how it will actually look like will be, we will use a ceil function to round this up and paste this in. and in our case this will be FPS. And what this does, it checks the last frame of the composition minus the current frame and divides it by the timeline frame rate, and it then rounds this value up. So if I put this expression in, we now have 16 seconds and it counts down once every second, and at the end we see the 0 at the last frame. So this is when the composition will actually end. If you want to see the 0 for 1 whole second, you will, instead of ceil, use floor function, and this rounds the value down. But instead, when you start the timer, you will have 1 second less. Previously it was 16, now it's 15. So this is done. You can now make a template, but what you don't need is the media in, and you also don't need this merge. This was only a help, so we could see the whole composition. We will simply connect the background to this merge. Now everything is transparent as it should be, but once you go into the edit page, you will see the final result as you have seen it while making it in the Fusion composition. That's it for this video. If you found it helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more DaVinci Resolve content. I'm Simon, and until next time, Jackal, keep it digital.